Hello, everyone. I am speaking to you today, and I am alone talking to you. Now, why is that relevant? Is that 5 years ago, on this very same date, I sat in a room. I had gone in to see an orthopedist, and this orthopedist had asked me to go in and do an MRI. And 5 years ago was in the height of the pandemic. And we all know what that was like, where we all had to wear masks. And I went into this tiny, small room, which was not much bigger than my shoulders. And I sat in that room with my mask on, getting hot. And I was like, all right, my shoulder's hurting me. So what is this orthopedist going to say? The doctor comes in and they walk in, very, very wonderful doctor. I remember it to this day because her hair was long and flaxen down her back. And I was like, that's pretty cool looking hair. So she sits down in front of me with her mask on and she puts her hand on my thigh. As soon as she does that, I say to myself, well, what the heck does that mean? Doctors don't put hands on thighs unless there's something dire that's going to be shared with you. And she shared with me that I had been diagnosed with something I've never heard of before, really. It's called multiple sclerosis. And my curious brain goes in and it tries to quizzically try to understand, where did I hear that from before? What does that mean? What does that mean? Is that a good thing? Can't be a good thing because her hands on my thigh. So she goes in and she explains this to me. And she says something to me that makes me understand how dire this is. She says, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I'm sorry for what? What does this mean? After she explained it to me. So a whole bunch of stuff happens after that where she needs to get me with a neurologist, etc. And I get in my car and I'm driving home and and I'm admitting this. I'm trying to do stupid internet research. I'm asking my phone, what does that mean? What does it mean? So I get and I go home and I heard what she told me. She gave me a very good, thorough explanation about what it meant. But in my own head, I was like trying to understand, what does this mean? Does this mean that is this akin to something like cancer or something? So when I get home, I did probably one of the worst things I could ever do, and I tried to do internet research. For those of you who know, internet research is good for many things. And 5 years ago, it was really not good for anything that was cogent and or that made sense. And when I did this, I'm telling you, please, if you're hearing me now or whenever you're hearing me, I was so emotional. I wasn't emotional just about MS and about what does that mean for me and for my life. I was emotional about everything else that had been keeping bottled up in my mind and brain for so many years. I have been ridiculed most of my life about one thing or the other. Growing up, I had a very pronounced speech impediment. Didn't know what that meant. I was different than everybody else, just like lots of us are different. And I'm saying to myself, what I've been holding in? What have I been bottling up for this amount of time? So after I let it all out, I don't know how long that was, but after I let it all out, I said, so what does that mean? What is my game plan associated with it? And I've learned a lot since then. I've always tried to be positive about many things, but there were some moments of not positivity where family members were asking me, is it contagious? How did you get it? What did you do, Winston? How did you get multiple sclerosis? And for those of you who know what I'm talking about, this is not something you get, it's something that happens. But a lot of it was positive. I became engaged with some men's group at my church, and these groups have been great. So, shout out to Buckhead Church here in Atlanta. And the men that I've met there have just been super solid and phenomenal guys. And I had a circle of friends, of really good friends, who all circled around and was there for me and for my family. But for me personally, I've always been a person, and maybe this is kind of my strength and my weakness. I'm always doing stuff. And so I said, what does this mean? Do I stop what I'm doing? Do I not know what I'm doing? What can I do? And the answer that was clear to me is that it wasn't about me. MS was not about me. What had happened was not about me. It was about what was I going to do to pour into other people. So my hope here today is to talk to you about a few things that I've done that I hope can have some resonance with you. The thing I love about these online platforms is that they're great ways for me to communicate. But you're probably saying, Winston, that's not your usual way of communicating. And that's because computers decide to act finicky. They are very, very weird sometimes. So the first thing I decided to do was like, what do I know that I need to give? What do I know that I need to give to other people? And I started to create a list. It's what I call the boss level. Like, what am I going? What's my moment of? What's all the stuff that has been swirling around that have been only being worked on partially or not at all that I need to work on? And how can I give to other people at the same time? And so I decided to write down what all those boss level things could be. And it was fascinating to find that as much as I am a productivity person, for a lot of times I think I was swirling around perhaps. Maybe I was swirling around just trying to figure out what does that look like. So the Fearless Productivity Show, for those of you seeing this live, you'll be able to go in and connect this. For those of you seeing this afterwards, you'll see some links to how do you get involved. Please subscribe to that because that is the main vehicle I found to pour out everything that I've known. And productivity for me is about being fearless. When I do productivity stuff, when I use the tools that I use, I don't do it because I just want to check off boxes. I do it because a lot of times I'm afraid about what happens if I don't do it. If I don't pay my bills on time, if I don't call up these various medical companies to make sure that they are billing me correctly, if I don't spend time with my mother and my father, or my brother, or my sisters, or my wife, or my son, that's what productivity is. That's what fearless productivity is knowing that you got to do stuff, the stuff at the job. And I'm telling you, I am being so particularly frank with you today is that I spent a lot of my life under the belief that my job had meaning for my life. And my job, my day to day job, was there, but it wasn't meaningful. For those of you who've been involved in corporate life, you're doing well today, and then the next day something happens. And it's really a ticking clock. No matter whether you're the CEO or you're the frontline person, it's a ticking clock in regards to when that's going to happen. And when it happened, it happened. And it was actually an accelerant in my life. That's when I decided that I'm going to join a men's group. I'm going to renew my faith or learn more about my faith. And then other great things started happening. And so if you're sitting there today and you're saying, oh, Winston, that's all great for you. And I hear what you're saying about your multiple sclerosis, but what does that mean for me? Stop and think about what is that thing that you have been sitting around that you've been trying to do. And what I've learned about productivity is that it's a snowflake. Me talking about me and you talking about you are two separate kind of things. I can give you a framework about the things that I've used and the tools that I've used. This very simple framework that I call CAMP, CAMP, but it's really related to you. And what I've learned is that me, Winston, man of 50 years old, who's had all this thing, is different than someone else who comes from a different background, or if you're a different gender, or you're of a different ethnic group, it is different. And so for me to get everything that I do to plug into you isn't as relevant as you understanding these principles I'm about to share. And the first one about camp, and this is create. And if you always wanted to write that book, if you always wanted to take that class, if you always wanted to give that speech, if you always wanted to go on that vacation, create something in your life. Just don't consume all the time. Consuming sounds great because we are inundated with the stuff that's coming at us, but I'm telling you, it's a recipe for misery. If all day long we just take in what's happened to us and it just, all we do is we consume stuff. So create something, get that piece of paper out, write that story, and don't try to boil the ocean. Don't say, I'm going to do 30 things. All the things I've been trying to do for the next last amount of years, I'm going to do it next week. It's not going to work. And the next one in this framework is attack it. And attack it in morsels. Attack it bit by bit. If you want to write that story, do not say, I'm going to write a 90-page screenplay and it's going to be done by next Friday. Write the 1 page. Write the 2 pages. Take the class that you want to take the class in. Sign up. That can be the morsel. Sign up. And here's one that doesn't get talked about a lot in this camp framework, and that is to maintain. So the tools that I use, the productivity tools I use, help to me to maintain. So I can create new things, and I cannot attack the new things I need to do if I don't take my pills or if I don't exercise. Or if I don't call my mom on the days that I'm supposed to call my mom. Or if I don't go to a ball game with my son. Those maintenance things gives us the framework to make sure our lives are moving the way they need to. I always hear the stories where somebody say, all I did was I just focused. I had blocked everything out. And all I did was focus, and that worked for them. But it's a lot of times it comes back and says that they've had a disastrous relationship with their loved ones. Please don't be that person. And that last links to the last one of the camp framework, and that is the partner. And partner with people who have a like-minded viewpoint. Not everybody can be a partner. Some people are vampires to your energy, and some people are complementary to your energy. So partnering with the right people, this is what I've had to learn, because I'm always on this thing like, I can help that person. I can do something. I can find some creative way to get this person where they need to be. And it's just not possible in some cases. So that's your camp framework. Create, attack it in a bite-sized way, maintain, use your tools to maintain, and then the partner. So how do I do this? What are some of the ways that I do this? So I use a tool. uh, I use a tool to capture what I need to do. I capture a relationship log. It's sort of like a CRM, client relationship manager, for those of you not familiar with that acronym. So I have a thing that every time I meet somebody, I may write it down. So I might write it down on a piece of paper on my iPad or Kindle Scribe. And then I put it in a tool called Notion. And it's sort of a CRM that says, yes, I met Jim on last week, Friday, and he's got 2 kids and he's got a dog. And this is what's going on with Jim. When I talk to Jim 2 years later, I can recollect what's going on with Jim. Or if Jim says, hey, let's meet for coffee every half or every whatever that is, then that leads into the next tool that I use, and that's Todoist. I realize, so the reason why I'm pausing here is that you don't have to use the tools that I'm recommending. All I know is that they recommend well for me. So if you don't use Notion or you don't know what the heck Notion is, think about a way. How everybody that you interact with, how can you keep a log of all of those interactions with people? Because people are what makes your life work. It is not just the tools in the system. So people. So where do I keep it? Do I keep it on a piece of paper? Do I keep it in my phone? Do I keep it in a real complex CRM? Whatever that is, make sure you're using it. For me, it's been Notion, and I've been using Notion for almost since in its inception, maybe about 6, 7 years now. And it really has been great for me. And then I translate that into Todoist. If you're an Apple person, you can use reminders. If you're a Google person, you can use the task. Because here's the sensible things that my brain, my MS, what I have is that MS is when your body attacks the coating of your nerves. And so everything that I do requires more effort. For you're saying, oh, once you're just talking really easy and more, you're easy going talking. It takes more, it's like rewiring my brain all of the time to do basic things. And sometimes those things don't function as they should. And some people who have MS, they have mobility issues, or they might have cognitive issues, or they might have visual issues. So what these tools do is that they help me to be focused on what's important. So Todoist is great. Todoist is a free version of Todoist, and all I'm just saying is that capture everything you've got to do is take the list. I've heard the guys on the Minimalist podcast saying the guy who runs it, I think his name is Joshua, where he's just like he just got one tally and one list, and that's all he works from. If that's you, then Todoist works for me is because I'm a proponent of the Getting Things Done framework from a gentleman named David Allen who wrote this book many, many years ago. And I need to put things in the right context because I need to focus. Like everything has to link to my values. And capturing what you need to do, that allows you to maintain. So if I got a bill, if the electricity bill is due on a certain date, my Todoist tells me 2 days before that the bill is upcoming. So my brain doesn't have to remember that the bill is upcoming. That would create personal stress for me to try to remember that, oh yeah, today is a such and so, today's the 15th, and that thing is doing the 17th. That's exhaustive energy. If I'm talking to you, I can't be thinking about my bills while I'm talking to you. I gotta be in the present moment. So that's what Todoist does for me. And Todoist, a lot of people say that they put things on their calendars, and I put the priority things on my calendars. I don't like my calendars looking like it's so cluttering that I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I put the major things. So if I have a major project to do today, I will block out the calendar to do that. So I had used this framework as the 1-3-5 framework. What's the one thing that moves the day forward? What's the three things? I think I did three things that I would love to do that would get the day forward. And then what are the 5 things that I wish could get the day forward? So those are some of the ways that I use tools in order to work through the CAMP framework. So I wanted to take a few moments here and talk about something that's been very revelatory for my life and maybe for yours. And I hear it gets lambasted every single day. And this is this whole thing about artificial intelligence. If you remember a few years ago, there was a lot of people and scammers talking about, yeah, you need to go and use crypto or use this. And then I forgot what the scam was before that. And if you're into those things, please don't take offense to that. Those things obviously have value and communities for themselves. But for me, those things require their own. They create their own communities inside of themselves, and I did not have the just resources nor desire to be in those communities, so I didn't do that. Artificial intelligence, however, is different. There have been so many creative things that have been on my plate for so long, going back to the CAMP framework, to create, attack, maintain, and partner. There have been so many things. And then when I decided to delve into AI, it gave me more ideas. And here's the truth. People think that, oh, AI, you're just getting rid of stuff. You're just getting things off your plate. Not for me. AI is giving me more work to do, but the work I want to do is giving me more work than I want to do. And it started to give this entire revelation to me in regards to how do I think about all of these artifacts. I have a ton of manuscripts and screenplays and articles and all of these things, and where do I put them, and how do I do this, and AI started to help me to synergize and to coalesce these things into kind of this cohesive view in regards to how I can take all of the stuff that I've done in my life. And so there are so many so many artificial intelligence. If I just started spouting one off or the other, someone will say, "Yeah, I don't like that. Or I don't like this. I don't." I'm just going to tell you the ones that I use, and there's really three primarily that I use. So GPT is out there, and I use GPT. This is going to sound like I am saying something derogatory about GPT, but it's sort of like my quasi Google of things because I don't really want to use Google anymore for anything for the most part. But it's kind of the Google of things for me. And I use it. It's got lots of functionality with it. The one that I found that has been the two that have been the most powerful for me, maybe there's three, is Claude is just great. A friend of mine pointed out to Claude, and I dabbled in every single one of these things. And so when I started to really delve into Claude, I was like Claude is like it's like I felt like it was like an assistant for me. And Claude is free, obviously, with the tiered plans that they have. And Claude was, I was like, oh my gosh, I can really have this thing remember stuff that I'm doing in such a powerful way. Claude and is super easy. None of these are easy. So there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos about making sure that you're putting in your prompts a certain kind of way and having these things remember what you are. Claude does that the best for me. However, Notebook LM by Google is of all of the ones that I go to the most, this is the one I go through the most every day. And that is because it's taking all of the writings, all of the stories that have been halfway here, all of these ideals that are swirling in my head, and creating notebooks for each one of them. So, for example, I'm going on a trip next year with my brother. So I created a notebook just for that. And I created a notebook for all of the research associated with AI. It's got its own notebook. And inside of Notebook LM, we can really share and talk about all of the different things that one can use. And I think that that's such a powerful, powerful, powerful tool. Uh, and the last one I'll share here for those of you who are following me is Gemini. And you might say, well, Gemini is not as good as GPT. Uh, uh, it's not as good as GPT or 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 Claude and all that. I don't really care about that. That's not what I'm trying to get at here. What I'm trying to get at here is that Notebook LM is good for me to keep the brain of all the stuff that I've got going on. And the reason why you saw me moving away slightly is that I was going to share just briefly. Like I said, I had this whole plan of doing everything on sharing. I had this whole setup for you today. And then my relatively new Mac Studio decided to have fun with me today. And I don't know what's happening. So I'm talking to you from the wonderful, wonderful grace that I have associated with my older MacBook Pro. So I'm very, very, very proud to do that. So I'll share with you some of the notebooks that I have inside of my Notebook LM. There's no clandestine or secret portions here to talk through. And they do so many wonderful things. So you see there's ones in here from my areas of my life. And they are really, really powerful, including some stories that I've written before and some upcoming stories. There's even one for multiple sclerosis, and there's one for some of the projects that I have upcoming, and including ones for many, many writings that I've had in the past. So if you think about this, even themselves have other ones that you can just click in on yourself. So, and the thing I love about it is that you can go in and actually, once you put all your sources in here, you can add your source into this. Uh, at the top, you can add sources into those. So say so if we went back and we created a brand new one, for example, and say we just created a new one, then you can just go in and just add sources from either your Google Workspace, your Drive, link, any website that you have, any YouTube channel you have, and you can paste and copy text into those. And the thing I really enjoyed is I'm going to find a quick file just for us to chat about here real quick. This semi meaningless to anything, but just for us to keep talking. So I just put one thing in here. Let's see if it works. But the goal here is that you can discover sources. So if you're a researcher like me, like my life is about researching new ideas and new topics and all of that. And then it has the ability for it to have this audio overview where it's like a podcast talking to you. And every single day they're putting new things in here. They're doing like video overviews and mind maps, and you can do various reports. Of all of these, I just love this the most by far. And for someone like me who's got multiple sclerosis, and my brain keeps saying to me, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? I don't have any cognitive challenges at the moment. I actually had a test done on this recently, and I am good from a cognitive perspective. I wanted a baseline in regards to, do I have any deterioration cognitively? And I don't. Uh, Besides the fact that I'm 50 years old, but there was actually some areas where I was higher in for my age group, and I thought that was pretty cool. I thought that that was very, very helpful for me to be there. But for me, and this is the reason why I'm telling you about AI, there's so much fear that AI is going to take everybody's job. I have zero fear about that. Uh, Not that it's going to not take everybody's job, but for me personally, that if I use the curiosity that I've always had and delve into it deeper and deeper and deeper, then that'll actually help me be prepared for the future, because it's not going away. It's not changing. And for those, it'll replace, someone said this very, very well, in my opinion. Your job may not go away, but you might lose your job to someone who knows how to use AI in your job really well. And I think that's true. Companies are obviously fearful of it. It's not a perfect thing on by any stretch, uh, but it's there for us. So that's it. So that's what I want you to think about. Camp is very important. Use that framework. Obviously, for those of you who are interested in it, please connect with me at winstonawilson.com, and I'll give you even more information about this and about how you can get involved. We're going to have a cohort of individuals who want to learn how to use Camp and all of the peripheral frameworks around it. But I'll close with, I was alone on October 25th, 5 years ago. I felt very alone. I felt very sad. I don't feel alone anymore. I don't. So whether I don't know you or you're looking at this 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 years later, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me. Hopefully, my story and the tools that I've used may resonate with you or with someone in your family or in your friends, because this world is got a lot going on, and technology is a balancing tool for us. It is for me. I don't anticipate like not being involved with technology for the rest of my life. As long as there's electricity, I'm going to continue to learn how to grow. I feel like I'm 18 years old. Like when I took a computer class when I was 14 years old, and everyone gave me grief. It's like, what do you mean you're going to computer class in the summertime? I feel like that. I feel like that. I can't run like I used to. I can think. I can take all of the jumble of information I've had over these last decades and put them together and give them to you. I don't know anything. God has given me everything that's in my mind. Every bit of words that I'm uttering to you is not mine. It's His. He's given it to me. I believe that He's created this earth, this tiny speck in the ocean of the universe, for us to create bounty for each other. Not to hurt each other, not to take from each other, but to give to each other. I'm committed to doing that. I don't own a thing. Feel free to say, Winston, I didn't understand that part. Or can you have another discussion about this in more detail? Feel free to let me know in the comments about how you feel about that, because I'd love to share that with you. This is a big time for me, but it's a wonderful, bountiful time for us all. Next year, our country celebrates 250 years. Celebrate your life today. Look at the person who's in your household, whatever, whomever that is. Look them in the eye and tell them how much you care for them. Hold them if you need to, because today is the day. I woke up, you woke up. Let's make this a bountiful day. This is Winston with the Fearless Productivity Show, the Courageous Creativity Show. Thank you so much for listening to me. And please